Hello, hello, and welcome to this Aquarius new moon reading. So, I would have liked to have gotten this up a little sooner. We are just under a week away from the new moon now, and this Aquarius new moon is going to be at the very end of January, 29th of January in South Africa. Although some parts of the world it's very late in the day, so it probably will work for most of America that it will be on the 29th of January, but it might be the next day for some. Anyway, the fact is that new moon in Aquarius is when the Chinese New Year begins. The Chinese base their New Year around the lunar calendar, so the Aquarius new moon is the one that they use to start their year. So this new moon, which I'm not going to speak too much into that because I don't know as much about the Chinese astrology as I do about Western astrology. But I'm going to put a link below to a really wonderful talk by Christopher Renstrom through Astrology Hub podcast, which I really, really loved about the Chinese New Year. So anyway, I will link that down below for those who are interested. But we're leaving the year of the dragon and entering the year of the snake, and that is more particularly the wood snake. And the Chinese zodiac is a 60-year cycle. So you won't get to another wood snake again for another 60 years. So babies born within the year of the wood snake will only get to repeat that living through the year of the wood snake when they're in their 60th year, which I think is quite remarkable. Anyway, let's get back to this Aquarius new moon. Oh, sorry, went too far down there. Okay, just a note that I have set this chart up for South Africa, the Eastern Cape, where I'm living. And so the pi wedges here that you see will not apply to you unless you live locally or in South Africa. So if you really want to draw up a chart that is more particularly correct to the houses of your area in which you live, then you can do that. This that I'm using is AstroSeek. It's a free app, so you can use that if you choose to. However, I think it's more important to just have your own birth chart and then go to your birth chart and say, okay, well, this is a new moon at 9 degrees of Aquarius. Where is 9 degrees of Aquarius in my chart? Okay. So in my chart, I'm going to go and look in for that space, and I'm going to find it in the sixth house. So now I'm going to go, okay, so what are sixth house topics? What is Aquarius new moon talking about? The energy I'm going to talk about now. And then how does that apply to my sixth house? And for you, you'll take it to wherever it is in your house, in your chart. So this is just start personalize it a little bit more and to develop your own astrology knowledge. And then you get to apply the energy forecast of, in this case, the new moon in Aquarius, to your personal situation and circumstance. Because although the energy in the sky is something we're all experiencing, we're all going to experience it slightly differently depending on how it hits our personal chart. Okay. So for a start, there are 4 planets here within the first decan of Aquarius. Each sign can be broken into 3 decans, the first 10 degrees of each sign. Remember that the first degree is 0 degrees of a sign, and the last degree is 29 degrees of a sign. So literally 0 to 9 is the first decan of Aquarius. And we have Pluto, big deal, Mercury, Moon, and Sun, all within that first decan of Aquarius. So if you have any planets or points within the first decan of any of the fixed signs, Taurus, let me show you here. Okay, so you're going to see Taurus. Opposite Taurus would be Scorpio. Taurus, Leo, which is opposite Aquarius, Scorpio, and Aquarius. So that's what the glyphs look like: the little bull with the horns, the lion's mane, the M with the tail, and the little lightning bolts. So if you have anything in the first 10 degrees of those 4 signs, this is going to hit you a little bit harder or more personally. And that would be because anything that is in Aquarius is squaring 90 degrees to both Taurus and Scorpio, and opposite 180 degrees from the first decan of the opposite sign of Leo. So those are harder angles, anything that's in the first degree, in fact, of Aquarius, which is conjunct, same place, same area. So the conjunction, the opposition, and the squares, those are the places where there's like some kind of like forced discomfort. And I mean, we could say all sorts of negative things about that, but for me, anytime we're in a challenging situation, it's a pressure to change, to transform, to grow, or a tug of war to like tear apart something that has gotten stuck and shouldn't be there. And this is a fixed energy. Aquarius and those other signs I've just mentioned, they are fixed signs, which means that they can get stuck. They can get fixated on a thing, whatever that thing is. And they are, of all the signs, the ones that struggle the most to change. So then it would stand to reason that when we're at a point at which we really need to break something down or shed something, think of snake, year of the snake, shedding layers. This is a sign that sometimes needs a bigger hit upside the head to actually change. And so if you have fixed planets or points, strong ones, I have fixed angles. So I know this stubbornness. I know this resistance to letting go of things, even when you know that they're not great. And I want to remind you that Aquarius is an air sign. Air is mental. And connecting, communicating, that sort of thing. The sort of human-y signs are the air signs: Gemini, Libra, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. So we're really finding here, Mercury is in the sign. Mercury is our thinking process. So we're really finding here a need to break down some old thinking patterns in quite a big way. And these are going to likely be the things that we're really fixed about. And, you know, we can see from science that our brains choose rather to stay in the known than step into the unknown. And that means even if the unknown is unhealthy, even if it is detrimental, toxic, bad for you, whatever, you will stay there rather than change because your brain knows that pattern, that neural path is well worn. It's a deep groove, and to start creating new grooves is scary for the brain. It's scary for this like sense of safety and security. Like there is, for our brain, there is safety and familiarity, basically. So here we are in this really outside of the box archetype, Aquarius. Think outside the box, futuristic thinking, kind of ahead of their time in their ability to perceive what might be good for the greater good of the whole. And we're also having to like forcibly get out of these grooves that we're stuck in. And I don't know about you, but I think that pretty much applies to the collective very, very strongly right now. And of course, every astrologer's spoken in ad nauseum about the shift of Pluto into Aquarius, where he is now absolutely happy for his 20-year journey. Well, I say happy. He's not getting out of Aquarius for his 20-year journey now. So he's fixed in there. He's fixed in the fixed sign of Aquarius. And the first few degrees of that, we're going to start to see what our journey with Pluto and Aquarius is going to look like. What are the challenges? What are the shadows? So Pluto at this point is almost at 3 degrees, which is as far as he's basically going at, almost at 2 degrees, sorry. And as far as he's going to get this year is to 3 degrees because he's got a retrograde coming up as well. So we are still just beginning to feel some of the shadow stuff of Aquarius and how Pluto's come here to change and transform that. Of course, if you have anything early degrees of Aquarius, you're having, let's say you have your sun early degrees of Aquarius, you're having a Pluto-Sun conjunction in a transit, and that is tough. You're going to really have to change, depending which planet it is. And again, with the squares and the oppositions. So any of the fixed signs are going to feel this particularly strongly. And for this year, it will be those first 3 degrees of the fixed signs particularly. So at this moon, we have just had Mercury make his first conjunction with Pluto in Aquarius. And so again, because Mercury is our mind and Pluto is this dynamic of power shifts and making big things small and small things big and just definite transformation and change, we have now suddenly, as we hit this new moon, our mindset, we might say, or our narrative has undergone this sudden whoosh where we kind of might be sitting there at the, and you might already be starting to feel this, but at the actual new moon, it will have just happened within the same day. So you're kind of going to be sitting there with this like, oh my God, I can't believe I used to think that was such a big deal. Actually, it's so trivial, it's so unimportant. Or I cannot believe I didn't see that this was a much bigger deal than I allowed myself to see it was. And within that sudden kind of 180-degree shift of I thought this and now I see it's completely the opposite, or whatever the case may be, there is going to be big shifts for us at the same time as the sun and moon are together, also, which is the new moon always, also within that space. I mean, they're moving away from Pluto at this point, but the moon was there within the last day as well. She also had a conjunction with Pluto. She will do that every month, okay? So she's moving quite fast, the moon. She's our fastest mover. She'll touch in with Pluto every single month or month to see how is my emotional transformation going around the areas of Aquarius and around in your personal chart, the house that this is happening in. Again, I'm going to look at my sixth house and I'm going to say, okay, what's happening in my sixth house with regards to all of these topics, okay? And you're going to see where it is in your own chart. So this is a very, very heavy decan of Aquarius for us to really look at all the Aquarian themes: innovation, groupthink, or hive mind. Aquarius is not so much about me. The opposite sign of Leo down here, that's the me sign. That's the queen. That's the queendom, or the king and the kingdom. Okay. So here we are thinking, how do I make changes for the good of the whole? So again, if you wanted to personalize this, for example, in my chart, that is in my sixth house of service. So I might start asking myself more personally these questions around how can I offer services to the collective, like I do, to help people grow and expand into themselves. So again, it's that dance between me and us, me being the most authentic, sovereign self, and how can I bring that to the world in the best way to create a better future? Because Aquarius is this futurist type of energy. It's also astrology energy. It's also internet energy. It's also beings from other planets energy. It's very big. It's very big. I always think in terms of fixed signs, one of the other fixed signs being Scorpio. Scorpio is like the deep dive, like a microscope going into the tiny little cells and getting obsessively inward. And I think of Aquarius being the opposite, as the telescope, really going up and out and expanding your horizons into other stars, into other star systems, etc., etc. So that is the energy of this moon and new moon, and that's what you want to set your intentions around. What is also exceptionally strong at this time. Before I say that, I just wanted to also point out that all of these planets, particularly Sun and Moon, though, are having a lovely trine to Jupiter and Gemini. So it's really encouraging. And Jupiter does like to make things bigger. He's very lucky. He really gives his seal of approval and gives you extra brownie points and support and acceleration in general. And when he's forming a trine, which is 120 degrees, he also is even more so. So he's really sort of sticking his blessings onto this new moon. In the meantime, another really hot area, and this, I think I'm going to speak into this so much this year, because it's something that's been coming into my awareness as I've been looking into 2025 and really finding this quite exciting, but I think it might feel quite uncomfortable and daunting at times, is the last degrees of Pisces and the first degrees of Aries. And literally today of this new moon, at the exact point of this new moon, the node, and in this particular one, so it might be a little different. This is the mean node. I actually more often use the true node, but I didn't change it on this chart. So we're looking at the mean node, so it might be a little bit different, but here it is 29 degrees and 59 minutes. It is within 1 arc minute of moving into the next sign. Remember that, of having moved from the last sign, Remember that the nodes move backwards, okay? So it's just stepped into Pisces, like just within an arc minute, basically. So we are looking at the nodes having nodes linked to eclipses, and they are 18-month cycles, and the nodes having spent this period of time in Aries and Libra, so north node in Aries, south node in Libra, where we've been experiencing our eclipses and big changes. Eclipses create like changes on steroids. We're not in an eclipse season now. This will be spoken into more within eclipse seasons, but we're heading to one because the nodes are shifting, the eclipses are beginning to shift. So basically we'll be heading into an eclipse season very soon. So here we are with this north node having just moved back into the last degree of Pisces from the first degree of Aries. In the meantime, Neptune, who is now no longer retrograde, so back moving in its forward movement, is at 27 degrees and 53 minutes, so almost 28 degrees of Pisces. And he is beginning this year his move, just as Pluto did, this vacillating back and forth across the line, moving from Capricorn into Aquarius over the previous few years. This year, Neptune begins his move from Pisces into Aries, which is also the very last degree of the very last sign of the zodiac into the very first degree of the very first sign of the zodiac. And the way I'm really feeling this strongly is that those last degrees of Aquarius are the birth canal. So we are literally being birthed. We are in that narrow passage where we're being squeezed and we're feeling all this pressure to come out, and we can't rush the process. Anybody who's ever had a natural birth will know it is a process. You know, there are times where you want it to stop. There are times where you want it to accelerate, but you're actually not in control of those things. And that's where we find ourselves. We are being pressed. We are being squeezed. We are being massaged. It's uncomfortable. And then we birthed in the first degrees of Aries. It's like the ram, the baby, comes out head first, and it's like, oh, from that birth canal point. So we're going from the end of something into the beginning of something. And it's so ironic because last year the theme of endings and beginnings, endings and beginnings was so strong for me. And I actually feel like it was almost more of a prepping the soil for this year, where it is not just, for example, the end of Pisces and the beginning of Aquarius, or sorry, not Pisces, Capricorn and the beginning of Aquarius for Pluto, but this is the end of the entire cycle, Pisces, into the beginning of an entire cycle, Aries. And Neptune cycles about 150 years. So this is not a small cycle. At the same time, at this new moon, Neptune is conjunct Venus. They are both very happy here. This is creating a beautiful dream and idealism, which ties into this futuristic thinking of Aquarius of what are we going to create? If we could make the world better for our children and our children's children, if we could correct some of the damage that we've done to the environment, if we could transcend the aging process in the way that we have by women learning more about their hormone cycles and supplementing through perimenopause and menopause and all these different things. If technology and studies and intuition and all of that is starting to show us more and more what we can do, if we can dream of it, if we can like believe it, if we can value different things, what could we create for the future, right? So both Pisces and Aquarius, which are very, very loaded in this new moon, are very much about creating something better. Aquarius does it more from the ideas, ideals, and Pisces more from the imaginal and the ideals. Both ways there's this, and also Pisces has more of an emotional intelligence and Aquarius more of an intellectual intelligence. And the meshing of the two is such magic. So this is really what's happening, and Venus and Neptune are conjunct here. And I just want to point out that Venus is doing a retrograde this year too, which she only does around every 18 months. And her retrograde is going to be crossing that same path. But she will cross those last degrees of Pisces into Aries, and then she will come back through those first degrees of Aries into those last degrees of Pisces. At the same time, we're having that first tap of that with Neptune this year. And Saturn and Neptune are both going to be doing that. So Saturn is also a slow cycle. He's a 28 to 30-year cycle, not as slow, obviously, as Neptune and Pluto, but still a big deal. And for him and Neptune to be making that cross together is quite profound. It's not something that happens, every Neptune cycle or every Saturn cycle. They don't happen to meet this way. So this is a very profound thing because Saturn's bringing in the structure and the real world. So Neptune is all dreams and ideals and boundless kind of energy. And then Saturn's bringing in the structure. Okay, fine, dream it. But now let's actually create. Let's build. Let's make that something more tangible. So it's a beautiful meshing. Of course, they have very different energies. So the way we may feel it in the process is kind of like some more Saturnian people are going to be like frustrated with the people who can't get things done, or even themselves being less able to get things done in the way they wanted. People who are more dreamers and creatives are going to be so frustrated with the people pressing deadlines on them when they're like, hey, that's not how the creative process goes and flows. And so internally for each of us, and look at the house in which this falls for you as well, this is where we're going to have to find that inner balance and inner struggle. And do you know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing like an octopus kind of moving, that sort of swimming like this, pull back, push, that kind of vibe, where sometimes you're not moving that fast. Sometimes you're in that creative flow, and then there's a spurt, and then there's a back pull, like a breath even. That's the sense I'm getting at the moment. So just as I spoke into the first decan of the fixed signs, I want to point out the last, not even decan, the last, let's call it 5 degrees of the mutable signs, and maybe the first 5 degrees, and you could even say the last 3 and the first 3 of the mutable signs, last of the mutable, first of the cardinal. So the mutable signs are, I'm just going to scroll up so you can see, oops, the glyph. Okay, that's Pisces. It's the last of the mutable signs. Gemini is the first. Virgo is the second. Sagittarius, and then we're back to Pisces. And in terms of cardinal signs, the very first degrees of Aries, first sign of the zodiac, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. So these are the places, the hot spots I would really advise you to look. I also just want to point out, I want to kind of bring this to a close because there's so much and I don't want to lose you here. But aside from this fascinating dance and Neptune's beginning to leave of the sign, we have Uranus, who spends 7 years in a sign and has been in Taurus for a long time now, coming to the end. He also begins his move this year from Taurus to Gemini. I won't speak into that too much at this particular forecast, but it's going to come up more and more because for all of the outer planets or the modern planets, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, to be doing these shifts within the space of the same few years when they are such slow-moving planets is profound. It's unprecedented. So it's exciting in terms of what is going to change in the collective. But also, these big changes are uncomfortable. And I don't even feel like that's a bad thing to say. Are we not experiencing it now? I challenge you to find a person who's not feeling things in their discomfort right now, in their personal lives, in their communities, in the world. I mean, there's a lot of crazy going on. It's part of the process. Think back to that birthing process. We cannot rush it. It has to get so uncomfortable in that birth canal that both the body of the mother and the baby are ready to make that break. Okay? Okay, but the one other thing, this is a very, very last thing I want to say about this, is that Mars is still in his retrograde in Cancer, and Cancer is the mother, just saying, and Mars is that impulsive baby, the ruler of Aries, that kind of is like coming head first and whatever. And obviously in retrograde is less able to move as directly as he would like. I mean, crabs, in fact, don't move directly. They move sideways. So yes, it's this nurturing of that part of you. So you really would do well to work internally this year with you as the mother, not about your gender, the mother, the nurturer, the creator of you as the child. So the baby, the vulnerability, the innocence, the purity, the newness. So you have to find that balance of mothering that infant within you and also being that infant, that pure, that source light, and all of those things. And the dance between Venus's retrograde, which is upcoming, and Mars's retrograde, which we're currently in, is also very, very connected and profound. For me, the way I'm feeling it, it's very powerful. At this particular new moon, Mars is forming a supportive trine to Saturn and a supportive trine to Venus. So there is a lot of promise, not only of this mother-child dynamic, but this masculine-feminine dynamic. And I really feel strongly and agree with a lot of people that I have heard say similar things around how it is time to heal the masculine. Again, not about gender, but also about gender, obviously. For men who are struggling in the changing world, obviously it means them. But also, if you are not a man, if you are a woman, or if you are, gender neutral, or whatever your feelings are, there is that masculine part of you. Okay, and Mars in your chart is going to talk about that part. So where is Mars in your chart? Where is the Mars retrograde transiting in your chart? What houses does Mars rule in your chart? Or does Mars rule any planets? Same with Venus as the feminine. Because here again, how can the feminine nurture the masculine? So that you might even see that baby, that infant part of yourself as the masculine, and that feminine nurturing part of yourself as wanting to birth a healthy masculine. So there's many different images you can use depending on what resonates with you to grow into these energies that are really powerful at this new moon, but are also really going to be continual through 2025 and probably even 2026. Although let's stay in our lane and focus a little on 2025. It's only just begun, so we won't rush. But anyway, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'm very excited about what is coming for us in the future. Obviously, there's a little trepidation, a little anxiety, a little fear, but that's what growth is. So let's get okay with feeling those ways and get okay with growing through these things and get okay with having conversations about it and admitting when we're feeling vulnerable. I think that's really, really important for all of us to do, to ask for help when we need help, to offer help when someone else needs help, to recognize where our strengths are and where we need support, and so on and so forth. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, do all of those things, and I will be back with another forecast soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful new moon.